What's going on, everybody? Thank you for watching Wild Fed Family, and today is probably my least favorite day of farming. Now, today is the day that one of the pigs finds its way into our freezer. If you've watched any of my other videos, many of you know that I have a small farm out here, and every animal out here serves its purpose. Well, there comes a time when an animal has served all of its purpose, and it's on to the next stage, which is food for my family. And that is the case for one of our sows. Now, she's probably about 3.5, 4 years old. She's the oldest pig that I got, the first pig that I got, and she's given me 2 litters. Well, she's starting to get old. Winter is coming. She's nice and fat, so I'm not going to waste the meat. I'm going to put it in my family's belly. On top of that, she's not going to grow any bigger, and at this point, I'm just wasting money on feed. With that being said, the whole purpose of this video is to show you how I take pigs from my backyard and I put them on the dinner table. Now, that's gonna include everything from slaughter day, which I'm doing right now, to hanging, processing, the different cuts that I get out of it, packaging, freezing, etc. I'm gonna show you every little bit of it so that if you one day want to do this, which I highly suggest, you'll have this video to look back on. It's time to do the deed, and I'm going to show you what I got set up in preparation for having a pig on the ground ready for cutting. So what I got here is a giant water oak tree that I do my hanging from, and I have a multi-pulley system with a gambrel, and she's going to hook up to that, and this is where I'm going to clean her out. Next, I have a pressure washer ready to go with a hose that is run down here from the house, and when I drag her out, you know, pig pens aren't exactly clean. She's gonna need a good old scrubbing. So I also have a dish scrubber, and I have a bottle of Dawn dish detergent. So between the pressure washer, the soap, and the scrubber, we're gonna get her nice and cleaned up before we even put a blade on her. And lastly, I have skinning knives. I have a Sawzall with a long 12-inch metal blade so I can split her carcass. And I also have my weapon of choice in order to take her out. Now, it's gonna take one single shot right there, and that is a 5.56. It's gonna shoot a 55 grain bullet, and that's gonna be just enough to give you an instant, clean, humane kill. I also have the walking cooler started up, cleaned out, ready to go, and it's chilling down to anywhere from 35 to 38 degrees. So as soon as I get her split, she is going straight up there to chill out. But YouTube is not going to let me show you any of that, nor do I want to. So the next you're going to see me is with a pig, and she's going to be over here by this gambrel, and we're going to get started. All right, y'all, so the not so fun part is over with. So I'm going to give her a quick rinse down, get some mud off her, and get her hanging in the tree. We'll go from there. Well, my initial guess was 410 pounds. Let me show you this scale. Here it is, 391.2. That was an absolute chore getting her up there. So, but now I gotta clean her off. So basically all I got is just a bristled dish scrubber. It's obviously dirty, but it'll clean up. And a bottle of Dawn dish soap, well, Ajax to be specific. And all I'm gonna do is get the mud off her with the pressure washer. I do not want to hold the nozzle of the pressure washer too close, because all that's gonna do is push dirt into the pores of her skin. It's basically just a water scrub, and then I'm gonna scrub her down with this. And you want to get all the bacteria off her skin, because that's your clean line. Every time you cut, what it's doing is pushing bacteria into the meat, and you don't want that. So give her a good scrub down, get her clean, get everything clean, and then we'll take it from there. pig right here is as clean as she's ever been or ever will be. And now I need to get her innards out. Now that's another thing that YouTube's not a fan of, so I'm not going to show you that part, but I am going to show you what innards I am saving and a little bit of the breakdown of it. But yeah, let me open her up. Now all of the innards are out, and stuff like the lungs, the bowels, everything that you really don't want to eat is going to end up going into the compost, so none of it goes to waste. But what I am going to save, and it's not all for me, is the kidneys, the liver, and the heart. Now the only thing that I'm going to eat is going to be the heart. The liver is going to go to the dogs, kidney is going to go to the dogs, and none of that's going to go to waste, and it's better than buying dog food. So yeah, use as much as you can. But I really still cannot do anything with her at this stage because she's still 300 pounds of pig. So what I gotta do is split her down the middle. I got a 12-inch just metal blade on a Sawzall. I'm gonna run it down her spine, and I'll show you the aftermath. Well, this is it, and she's split down, and you can see it runs right down the spine, and that's what you want. So you got half of a carcass to handle when you're moving it to the cooler, and once we get to cutting it up in a couple days. But this is it for today. I'm gonna load her up on the back of the golf cart, and I'm gonna hang her in the cooler just like that for one day. The reason why I'm leaving the hide on is because I value that fat a ton. Now if I were to skin her right now, I'm gonna end up leaving a bunch of fat on that hide, and I want the hide and the fat to chill down. Sorry, my camera died. But I want the hide and the fat to chill down so that it's very easy for me to take my skinning knife and run it in between that fat and hide, and it just separate cleanly. So tomorrow I'm gonna take what hide is on her off, and then I'm gonna let her keep on hanging at least one more day. But she's in the cooler now, and right now it is about 45 degrees in here, and it's only going to get cooler as she cools, and as she cools she's going to help hold that temperature a little bit better too. So I'll see you back tomorrow. But in the meantime, I'm going to take a shower because I desperately need one, and I'm going to go sit in a tree stand, kill some time. Well, good morning. It is the next day, and the pig's been hanging there for about 16 hours now, so I'm going to go ahead and get the hide off her now that she's chilled down and firmed up. And that cooler is a 5x5 room. You got the window unit ripping in the background, not a lot of space, plus there's 300 pounds of pig and me in there, so it's kind of cramped, not ideal filming conditions. So I'm going to show you once I get the hide off kind of what we're looking for. All right, so that wasn't too bad. It took me about an hour or so, and here you go. That is the hide completely off, and there's a major difference between this fat cap and the fat cap on something like a deer. Now, I could let that piece of meat hang in the cooler for up to 10 days like I do a deer with no hide, and it'd be perfectly fine because of that reason. But, you know, deer are a little different. They don't have that fat, so I leave the hide on them when I hang. But it hasn't even been 24 hours yet. I'm gonna let her continue to go through the rigor stage, and probably tomorrow afternoon or the day after that, I'll get around to actually start breaking her down. So stay tuned. So for those of you wondering what I do with the hide, yes, that goes into the compost as well. Thing is, I don't have the apparatus to scald a 400-pound pig. Now, if it were a smaller pig, yes, I would have scalded, scraped, kept the skin, made cracklings, etc. But right now, my dogs enjoy a bunch of it. The rest goes into compost, and the cycle continues just in another fashion other than food on my plate. Hold on. I need to catch my breath. Well, there you have it. Got the entire half carcass laid out here on my kitchen island, and I'm about to start breaking it down. Now, in order to do that, I have 3 different tools right here. This is just regular old hacksaw. Put a brand new blade on it, metal blade. Now there's fancy stainless steel meat saws that you can get, but this is going to serve the purpose and it's not going to get used a ton. Secondly is just a large slicing butcher's knife, and that I'll be using for the major primal cuts. And everything from there, I prefer when I'm doing deer, pigs, whatever it may be, to use this 7.5 inch Rapala fillet knife. Now the blade is pretty stiff, it holds the blade well, it's comfortable in my hand, light, and this is my all-time favorite all-purpose knife. But I'm gonna go ahead and get this cleaned up and go ahead and chop off the feet right at the hairline here. And now you can save these feet, use it for all sorts of things, but I have 4 dogs, I have 4 feet, so that is dinner for them tonight. Now, I went ahead, spun it around, flipped it over so you could see a little bit of what was going on. And right here you have this giant layer of fat that is called leaf lard, and a lot of this just peels away. And that's the first thing that I want to peel away, because what I want to expose is right here, and that's going to be your tenderloin. Now, everybody loves good pork tenderloin, and that is going to be the first thing that I cut out, and probably one of the first things that I eat too. So you just peel this membrane back, kind of expose that whole muscle group, and right along here on the spine, and just like a deer or any other animal, you just go ahead and cut along, free it up, and it doesn't take much. It's held in there by hardly anything other than a few small tendons, and it peels right out for you, just like filleting a fish. Slowly stick it in, work your knife back. And look, this is a perfect example of why I really like using this fillet knife. It's because it has a nice strong point on it. It's sharp, and you're able to just work it in to tight places and cut it right out. So there's the end of it. Trim it out. Right there is a pork tenderloin. Now that I got the tenderloin out, I'm gonna pull out this leaf lard right here, and it comes out very easy, just kind of peels back. This is getting saved for sausage. Now, it's on to the major cuts, and that is where these 2 tools come into play. Now, right here at the divot on its hip, I'm gonna cut, and right here behind the shoulder, 3rd or 4th rib in is where I'm gonna cut as well. And I'm gonna break these into 3 large portions. You're gonna have the ham, you're gonna have the loin, and you're gonna have the shoulder. So, like I said, right here at the dip, I'm coming with my saw and just cut through the bone, and that's all I'm cutting through. Right there is the bone, no longer held in place. And if I can get my knife down in here, break this whole portion out. A little bit more bone right there. Do as much cutting as you can with your knife, and only use your saw to get through bone. So right there is your massive ham. Moving on to separate the loin and the shoulder. So right here, I'll come back 1, 2, 3, 4, right about there. One more squirt cut. And split it down with the knife. All right, shoulder, loin, and the ham. Now I got all of these into manageable cuts now where it's not going to take the breath out of me just trying to move them around. So I'm actually going to start with the loin first because honestly I think it's the most fun and the most interesting. So right along here, just under where the ribs meet the spine, I'm going to go ahead and cut a clean line all the way across, right on down to the bone. And you can feel your knife just bumping along the ribs. Eventually you're going to run out of ribs and be able to cut all the way through. From there, my fillet knife. And this is where we take the belly off. So just like separating any muscle group on any other animal, I'm just coming down the rib cage, finding the natural seam, and I'm following it. I've said before in my other videos, God gave you lines. All you gotta do is follow them, and you're gonna end up with something that resembles what you're expecting. Same thing, working right along the rib cage. Keep on coming down, and it will all start to take shape. Now that I got this separated, right there is your pork belly, and that is where bacon comes from. Now there's a ton of stuff that you can do with this. You can cube it up, turn it into burnt ends. You can cure it like you would ham, and use it in soups, stews, whatever it may be. But pork belly to me is meant to be turned into bacon, and that's exactly what we're going to do with it. Now I'm sure at this point many of you realize what you're looking at, and yes, that is a rack of ribs. And all I'm going to do is follow this same line with the saw and cut the ribs free from this loin. There you have it. You got a rack of ribs, and specifically these are the spare ribs where your baby backs come from are going to be on this bottom side, but I'm actually going to leave the bone in when I cut these loins, so no baby back ribs from this pig, but we do have a big rack of spare ribs. So now comes the really cool part. This is by far my favorite part of this pork processing, and it is cutting pork chops. Now this loin is where your pork chops come from, and we're going to do some big, thick cut bone ends. So right here at the end, you can feel your bone, and you want to do as much of this with the knife as you can. And I'm going for about 1 inch thick. So that's what I'm doing. I'm feeling that bone, getting within about 1 inch, and then cutting that pork chop down. And I'm going to work my way all the way down this spine. All right, I'm done cutting all the way down here, and you can see it's just an accordion of pork chops that are held together by the spine. So the last thing to do is put that spine out of the way, and you're gonna use your saw. So there you have it. I have one large end piece that I'm gonna turn into a roast, tie it up, cook it in the oven like that, like a prime rib. Other than that, I got one, I don't know, 15, 20 pork chops from one loin. And look, I don't know if it gets much prettier than that. That is gonna be dinner tonight. Or maybe tenderloin. I don't know, I can't make up my mind. Now I forgot to mention, some of this, I'm probably gonna take about half the fat cap off on that pork chop. And that fat, like I said earlier in the video, is extremely valuable to me because I use it to mix in with my deer sausages. But anyway, moving on to the ham. Now, the ham is going to be turned into ham. So that's what I'm gonna use this portion of it. From here on down, I'm gonna split it in half. Now you basically have two different portions, and I'm gonna start with this whole half, and I'm gonna just start removing bone. There you have it. H-bone is removed, and all you're left is the ball joint, the ham, and then essentially your rump roast. Now, what I want to do is take this ham and split it right down through here, and what that's going to do is give me this roast area and separate the ham. So I'm going to take my big knife, run it on down, and just cross cut the entire thing. Right there at the ball joint. And there you have it. Back to the fillet knife. Cut around the bone. Separate it away. And from there, you got a roast, and you have your ham. Now I'm gonna clean this up a little bit too. So there you have it. That's your ham, and it is probably about 30 pounds, and that is an absolute beast. Now, this right here, some of the trimmings, and this whole thing, and what I'm gonna do is, a lot of these cuts I'm using, and I'm cooking as whole cuts, but this right here is awesome for making sausage out of, so I'm gonna cube it up in 1-inch cubes. And sorry y'all. Once again, my camera died, and this is the aftermath of the hind quarter breakdown. So this is the ham that I've wrapped in saran wrap, and I'm going to brine it. And this is everything from that rump roast, cubed up, turned into sausage meat, ready for the grinder. So that's roughly, I don't know, 7-8 pounds, plus a whole ham. So I'm gonna set this back here, and I also took that time to take advantage of a little bit of time that I had to vacuum seal everything. So all of that is behind me, but the last part is going to be the shoulder. Now, in order for me to break down the shoulder, first thing I gotta do is take this front shank off. And I'm just gonna cut a clean square cut right around, and then coming up from the top, I gotta get around that knuckle. And there you go. You see it just breaks on free. This is the same kind of breakdown for just about every four-legged animal. And just use your knife. Once again, the reason why I use this fillet knife, get in there, find your joint, break it down with a knife, and you do not have to use a saw. But for this case, I want a clean bone cut. So I am going to use a saw. And there you have it. Pork shank, ready to go, broken down. Now, flipping this over, what I do not want is all of this spine in here. I'm gonna break this down into 2 different roasts, and these roasts are gonna be good for putting in the smoker, going on smoke, slow heat, and creating some barbecue. So right here, you can feel some ribs that are just on the surface. Take your fillet knife or your boning knife or whatever you feel comfortable using and run the blade right along, separate the meat and the bone, and it peels away very easily. Next is going to be the spine. Same thing, run it right along, take your knife in there, and let the weight of your meat do the job for you. So I got the shank off, the spine and the ribs cleaned out right here. And the last thing I want to do is split this sucker right in half. Now, half of it is barbecue, half of it is barbecue. You basically get 2 pork butts out of this. Now, I'm not a professional butcher and I don't claim to be, but when you slow cook something, it's all going to break down the same. So I'm gonna take the shoulder, split it in half, slow smoke it, rub it in some good barbecue rub, and it doesn't matter because it's going on a sandwich and going in my belly. So right down the middle is where it's gonna go. And once again, all I'm doing is coming down, finding the bone, and from there, I'm gonna use the saw. Right there is 2 big pieces of pork ready for the smoker and ready to feed an army. Alright, so I've completely broken down this pig and you see it on the table right in front of me. So I'm just going to go through, point out what I got. So this is a shoulder, this is a shoulder. So both of these came from the same shoulder. They're both going to turn into barbecue going on the smoker. Now this is the ham. I'm going to go ahead and brine it and smoke it, and we're going to have fresh ham. Right here is actually what you didn't see, and this is all the bones that I trimmed off, and I'm going to save that in order to make pork stock, and it's going to be extremely good. Now right here and right here is the pork belly. All of this is going to turn into bacon, front shank, and both of these are ribs. Now I ended up taking it and I split it in half because I could not get it in a vacuum sealer bag. And so there you go. I got 2 racks of ribs that are ready to go. From here, I got pork chops. All of this is pork chops and roast. And then following up is a big bag that is ready to go for sausage, whether I want to mix it in with venison or make sausage on its own. So this right here is the complete breakdown of half a pig, and I still have another half a pig to go, but I think that is going to be a chore for another day. So there's one last piece of this puzzle that I chose not to put on here, and that is the head. And if you're wondering, the head is not going to waste. I took out the eyeballs, the ears, the tongue, all the stuff that you don't want to eat, and it did not make it on this video because if there's one thing that might get you demonetized or removed from a platform, it is showing a skinned face. So don't want to do that. It's not going to waste. It's going to make some really great pork tacos. So yeah, that's it. So all that is left to do is go ahead and label it with a Sharpie, stick it in the freezer, and I'm gonna have a supply of pork for a very long time. Not to mention, I got some more pigs growing down there and they are doing just fine. But what I want to say to you is thank you for watching and thank you for subscribing. Now, it is not that hard to raise your own pork, raise your own meat, whatever it may be. Go out, get good food, and don't be afraid of taking a little bit of risk, because what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it, and it is fantastic stuff. So I'm just going to go inside, eat pork tenderloin, pork chops, bacon, all that good stuff. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Hope you learned something. See ya.